The United States State Department made an offer to Denmark. It wasn't just any offer. It was a proposal to buy Greenland. This move wasn't a quiet diplomatic note. It was a public declaration, a major shift in how the US was thinking about global power. The news hit like a sudden cold front, catching everyone off guard. It wasn't something you hear every day, a superpower trying to buy a whole country, even a territory. This wasn't some historical relic, a throwback to colonial times. This was happening now, in the modern world. The reaction from Denmark was quick and to the point. A high-ranking Danish official stepped forward, his voice firm, his message clear. He called the offer absurd. He even went as far as to say it was an April Fool's joke out of season. His words were meant to shut down the conversation immediately, to dismiss the idea as completely out of line, even laughable. He spoke with a confidence that seemed to say, "This is not happening, this will never happen." It was a public rejection, no room for negotiation, no polite diplomatic niceties. The message was simple. Greenland is not for sale. Watching all this unfold, it was easy to get caught up in the Danish official's seemingly rock-solid dismissal. He sounded so sure, so certain that the idea was ridiculous, but beneath that confident exterior, there was something else bubbling up. The US wouldn't just throw out an offer like that for no reason. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a random thought from some low-level bureaucrat. This was the US, a country known for its strategic thinking, even if sometimes that thinking seemed a bit out there. Their proposal, while shocking, hinted at a deeper, almost desperate strategic need. It suggested that there were vulnerabilities, unacknowledged threats, or perhaps opportunities that were becoming too big to ignore. The US wasn't making this move lightly. It was a sign of something much bigger going on, something that wasn't being talked about openly. A small, resource-rich island suddenly became a major focal point for global power plays. The outright rejection from Denmark, while firm and clear, didn't seem to deter the US. In fact, it almost seemed to intensify their interest. It was as if the offer itself was just the first move, a way to test the waters, to gauge the reaction. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The US had shown its hand, and while it was slapped away, the game was far from over. This was merely the opening salvo in a much larger unfolding drama. A geopolitical chess match, where Greenland had suddenly become a crucial piece. The world was about to see just how serious the US was about this icy landmass. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. To truly grasp why Greenland suddenly shot to the top of the geopolitical wish list, we need to rewind, going back to a time when its strategic value was mostly ignored. For centuries, Greenland was a harsh, isolated place, home to a resilient indigenous population living off the land and sea. Their way of life, deeply connected to the Arctic environment, remained largely untouched by the outside world. Danish colonial administration was minimal, focused more on distant oversight than active development. To most of the world, Greenland was little more than a vast, ice-covered blank space on the map, remote and seemingly without much importance. It was perceived as a frozen, desolate outpost, far from the centers of power and commerce, a forgotten corner of the world. But this perception slowly started to change. The early 20th century saw scientific expeditions begin to map its resources, hinting at what lay beneath the ice. These weren't grand, nation-building ventures, but rather quiet, academic explorations. Then came World War II, a global conflict that unexpectedly thrust Greenland into the strategic spotlight. Its location, halfway between North America and Europe, made it vital for weather forecasting, crucial for transatlantic flights and naval operations. The US, recognizing this, established weather stations there, small outposts that were critical to the war effort. These actions, though tactical at the time, were the first real cracks in the idea that Greenland was just an isolated, unimportant territory. It showed that external powers were starting to see it as a strategic asset, a piece of geography that could influence larger global events. The Cold War cemented this shift. As tensions between the US and the Soviet Union escalated, Greenland's position became even more critical. It sat directly in the path of potential intercontinental ballistic missile routes. The US built Thule Air Base, a massive installation that became a key part of its early warning system and air defense network. This wasn't just a weather station, it was a permanent military presence, a clear sign that Greenland was now an indispensable part of Western defense strategy. These developments, from scientific mapping to military bases, showed a consistent pattern. Outside powers saw Greenland as a tool, a location to be utilized, rather than an integral part of Denmark with its own independent destiny. Denmark's control, while official, was increasingly being overshadowed by the strategic imperatives of larger nations. These strategic interests led to small, but significant, policy shifts and diplomatic maneuvers that chipped away at Denmark's absolute control and highlighted Greenland's growing vulnerability. A prime example was the 1941 Defense of Greenland Agreement. With Denmark under Nazi occupation, the Danish ambassador in Washington signed an agreement with the US, allowing American forces to defend Greenland. This was done without the direct approval of the Danish government, which was essentially powerless at the time. It was an extraordinary act that, while necessary for defense, subtly diminished Danish sovereignty in practice. Later, Cold War treaties granted the US extensive operational rights, further embedding American presence and influence. These actions, often framed as temporary or defensive, progressively created a situation where Greenland's fate was increasingly tied to global power dynamics, not just Danish colonial oversight. It revealed a growing understanding among major powers that Greenland was too important to be left solely to traditional, distant administration. Its strategic value was no longer a secret. It was a fact of international life. Now in the 21st century, everything changed again, but this time it was climate change that became the main driver. The melting ice, once a barrier, started revealing something incredible: vast, previously inaccessible mineral resources. We're talking about rare earths, crucial for modern electronics, uranium and even oil. Suddenly, this remote, frozen island was sitting on a treasure trove. On top of that, the melting ice also opened up new Arctic shipping routes, making Greenland a potential hub for global trade. This environmental shift completely redefined Greenland's value. It went from being a distant outpost, important only for military strategy, to a critical geopolitical chessboard, a place everyone wanted a piece of. The US offered to buy Greenland, and Denmark's quick rejection didn't end the matter. In fact, it just supercharged a new great game for Arctic dominance. The rejection was like a signal to other major powers. China, for instance, had already been quietly increasing its presence, funding research stations and exploring mining opportunities. Russia, always keen on its Arctic borders, also ramped up its military and economic activities in the region. Suddenly, Greenland was caught in a complex web of international competition. There were economic partnerships forming, scientific research being conducted by multiple nations, and a lot of subtle and not so subtle military posturing. Denmark, a relatively small country, found itself in an impossible position. It simply didn't have the resources to manage such a massive, internationally coveted territory on its own. The pressure was immense. Realizing the situation was unsustainable, Denmark was forced to make a significant move. It granted Greenland greater autonomy. This wasn't a full independence, but it was a huge step towards decentralizing power. It meant that Greenlandic authorities now had a direct channel for international engagement, bypassing Copenhagen in many ways. This change was monumental. The people of Greenland, who for centuries had been marginalized and largely ignored by the rest of the world, suddenly found themselves at the center of global attention. This newfound spotlight brought both immense opportunities and daunting challenges. On one hand, there was the potential for economic prosperity like never before. The rare earths, the oil, the shipping routes, all promised wealth and development. On the other hand, there was the delicate balance of preserving their unique cultural identity and protecting their fragile environment from the influx of external interests and resource exploitation. They had to navigate the geopolitical ambitions of powerful nations, trying to secure the best deals for themselves without becoming pawns in a larger game. The outcome of all this isn't a simple victory or a clear defeat. It's a complex, ongoing struggle for self-determination. Greenland's people are making decisions that will shape their future, balancing economic needs with cultural preservation, all while under the intense scrutiny and pressure of global powers. They are learning to manage unprecedented external pressures and opportunities, asserting their voice on the world stage for the first time. In the melting ice, a new global power dynamic emerges, with Greenland as its reluctant yet pivotal epicenter.